I'm from Delhi. This is my first Sangat in Dubai, and I'm very, very pleased to be here. And this is something special Guruji is trying to do, is to ask me to speak here today. Guruji, forgive me if I say anything wrong or less or more, and I hope to share some of my emotions and experiences with Guruji. I first met Guruji with my sister in 95, and that was a one-time incident, and I don't remember anything of that meeting. And then in 2006, Guruji called me, and I went in, and how I calculated backwards that I had been to him was, he said, "Aa gayi Anita auntie, aaj 11 saal and some days." So that's how I was able to calculate that I had been to do darshans of his in Delhi in GK Mandir so many years ago. He did turn our lives around, which were going through some very turmoil and difficult times. And the day I got to know that Guruji had taken his Mahasamadhi, I was on a flight to Italy. And I was shocked to hear. At first I couldn't understand or comprehend what I was being told. When it sank in, I was quiet. We were with a group of people. I didn't say anything. They were mostly all foreigners. And I just kept thinking to myself. But we were going in the car, and there were about 3-4 other people in the car. And every time I would think of him or I would open my mouth to speak, I would get this fragrance of roses. And I kept looking over my shoulder that where is this fragrance coming from? And I realized it was actually, every time I spoke about Guruji, it was coming from within, inside. And soon after that, when I came to Delhi, I went to the Bada Mandir, and there was just a few odd handful of Sangat. Nobody knew really what was going to happen. The main temple was closed. We were sitting outside, and there was a photo of Guruji's, and I was really shattered, and I was weeping away and thinking to myself that, Guruji, how much you used to feed us, how much you loved us. Who's going to do all this now? So, and till now they had not served any langar, which was the normal feature earlier. And suddenly somebody announced at the end of that hour of bhajans being sung that today we are going to serve langar. So I went, stood in the queue, took my tray, and I was taking the langar. So the guy looked at me and he said, "Auntie, thoda jahor, thoda jahor." He gave me langar for about 4 people, not just one. And I had to sit there. First I just wept, collected, cooled myself down, and I started eating. And I managed to eat the entire thali. So he calmed me, he gave me the message that all will be well and I'm here for you. After that, I used to keep going to the mandir, and I would stop by to see my mother often. And my mother, who was blind, couldn't see anything. But if I walked in and I would say, "I'm going to the Bada Mandir now, I'm going to see you for a while," she would say, "Tu phul le aayi hai? Have you brought some flowers?" I said, "No." She said, "Are you wearing some perfume?" I said, "No." And so it was like bringing in Guruji's fragrance and blessing, obviously, my mother and leaving. My mother, who was blind and had a lot of other health issues, one day in the morning she woke up at about 3:30, 4 o'clock. And she said there was so much fragrance of roses around me. And she says, I wanted to get up from the bed, but some force was stopping me, and I kept lying down. She couldn't get up, and she said that I know Guruji was there and he was healing me. My mother, who'd been blind for over 20 years, she had a retinitis pigmentosa eye disease, who had really lost her vision slowly over the years. For the next few days, she could actually see a little bit. She was so excited. She called me and she asked everybody to leave the room. She said, I have to talk to my daughter alone. It was between her and me and Guruji. So she told me that how she could see the color on the wall, how she could see some color, and she felt so blessed. It was an experience really for all of us. My husband then, I was with Guruji before that going back a little bit, on the Mahashivratri in the year that Guruji took Mahasamadhi. And I got a message from my husband saying that he had a collapsed pelvic, which means he needed to have a pelvic hip replacement done. I was so nervous because he had other serious health issues. So managed to tell Guruji on the Mahashivratri day, which was such a busy day with thousands of people there, that this is what had happened. He was quiet for a while and then he said, Bani uncle nu kaho kuch nahi hoga, sab theek ho jayega. And he was then, in a week's time, he was operated. I went back and he was operated. The surgery, where it normally takes 3 to 4 hours, it was done in less than 1 hour. And he needed no blood transfusions, nothing, which is very, very common that you lose a lot of blood in a hip replacement surgery. But after I left the next day of Mahashivratri back for London, I remember taking back, that year they had distributed Guruji's calendars for the first time. We opened the calendar in London and there was so much fragrance of roses from that calendar all over the flat. And that was the first night when I was back. We lay down, my husband was in a lot of pain, we still hadn't gone to New York for the surgery, and he was almost asleep, and I lay down to go to sleep, and I used to have Guruji's little sthan, puja sthan, on my bedside table and the calendar there. I know for certain, as I lay down, that there was a presence. I heard the rustle of Guruji's vastra, his robes, and I felt this person go around from my right side to the left to my husband's side of the bed. My heart was pounding and I thought it would fall out of my mouth. I knew there was somebody in the room and it was Guruji. But within 10 seconds, he put me to deep sleep. I don't know what happened after that, but he worked on my husband, obviously, treating him, healing him, curing him. And that's why the surgery was a miracle. It was only for less than 1 hour, about 40 odd minutes of surgery. And the surgeon worked like he was almost possessed. And later on, when he came to the room to visit on his rounds, he said, he saw the photo of Guruji there, and I was just staying in a chair in that room for those few days. And he said, who is this? So we said, this is our saint. He said, okay. He kept looking at him very thoughtfully. And he said, I think I've seen this person somewhere before. So maybe Guruji was with him, guiding him, showing him the path. Half proceedings of the surgery maybe he was so involved with. So that was Guruji. And Guruji has done a lot for the family. He has protected us always, always. And years ago, somebody came to my husband and said, you know, Guruji is calling you. So my husband said, no, I don't go to Guruji's, you know, this is many years before. So he said, then one day he came and he said, Guruji keh rahe ne mandir di diwar bana de. So he said, well, what do you mean? He said, there's some construction going on. This is before the Bada Mandir was even made. So he said, okay, I'll give you the money, but you can go have it made. So after it was made, Guruji sent a message through him saying, Bani uncle nu kaho, main unna de charo taraf diwar bana deti hu. A wall of protection around him. And my husband is actually a heart transplant patient, and this year it will be 20 years. And we are very, very, very blessed. And we know that it is Guruji who is protecting us. And the doctors use him and say that he's our model patient. We have not seen so many heart transplant survival patients as we have seen this one. And definitely, through all those turmoils that he's been through, the doctors have turned around and said, we have done what we could do, but there is somebody up there who's looking after you. Thank you. Jai Guruji.